Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker. With me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman, and we've got another fantasy preview in store for you guys today. It is Homestead this upcoming weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series, and the Xfinity Series is also at Homestead Miami Speedway this weekend as well. We've got a couple of little things to get to before that with the news and notes, but just a quick off the top. If you have not seen our latest episode with a special interview here with Raphael Lettart, make sure to go check that one out before you watch this one. It was a lot of fun when we recorded that yesterday with him, so make sure to go check that one out. Special thanks to him once again for hopping on the show with us and answering our questions. It was really a lot of fun, Kyle. It was a blast. It was a dream come true, and lots of exciting answers and intriguing answers, to say the least, from Raphael Lettart there. So make sure to go check that one out. But how you doing today, Kyle?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yesterday was a ton of fun. Yeah, it's been a busy week for myself with a lot of school work and stuff, but getting that interview in was awesome. It's something that's been in the works for a little while here. It's been a long time coming, I guess you could say, but no, that was a ton of fun to do. Right down to the wire for the Zoom time limit. Shout out Ryerson for the 40-minute cap on our Zoom calls. But no, it was a ton of fun. It was great to get to talk to him, get some more insight into his career, how he's got up to this point, and obviously what his future aspirations are here, both in the short term with GMS and in the long term. So absolutely, if you haven't checked that out yet, go ahead. It's a lot shorter than our usual episodes as well, so it's a lot more digestible. But no, it was a ton of fun getting to talk to Raphael yesterday.
Yeah, and I got the opportunity to ask him about Kyle Busch, so that was that was the icing on the cake for me. But that was a great episode, so make sure to go check that one out. But let's focus on this one right now. We've got some news and notes. Let's get into that right away. NASCAR has signed a multi-year deal with DoorDash to become an official partner of the sport, as well as, quote-unquote, the official on-demand delivery platform of NASCAR. So that's quite the mouthful, to say the least. I don't know if they're going to abbreviate that, but nonetheless, happy to see that DoorDash has become an integral sponsor here with NASCAR. They came on last season with sponsoring Bubba Wallace, then at Richard Petty Motorsports, and that has transferred over to 23XI Racing this season. So it's great to see that they are really integrating themselves within the sport, staying here long-term, multi-year commitment. That's huge for a sport like this, and to have a company that is, well, definitely serving a lot of people's needs right now in DoorDash with online delivery. I'm sure they could do a lot worse than DoorDash right now. So pretty cool opportunity here for NASCAR to have a new avenue here of marketing. Kyle, what do you make of the agreement here?
It's just awesome to see a new company into motorsports dive headfirst in like this. Just remember, it's not that long ago that DoorDash wasn't even a NASCAR sponsor, and all of a sudden they're sponsoring one of the premier drivers in the series, one of the most notable, at least in Bubba Wallace, with a new team there, one of the most notable as well, with Michael Jordan involved. They're one of the primaries there, and also being involved in it on the actual NASCAR side of things is awesome to see. And yeah, anytime you can see these new sponsors get involved in the sport and then very quickly kind of double down on their investment into the sport, whether that's starting off with a couple races with somebody and then turning that into a half season or a full season sponsorship, or whether it's like this case with DoorDash sponsoring a driver and also sponsoring the NASCAR side of things as an official sponsor. So it's really cool to see, and hopefully we get to see more and more of this as the years goes along.
For sure. It's really cool, really exciting to see that NASCAR has investors here that are really wanting to take that next step here and market themselves across the sport. And we'll see how long they stay a part of the sport. Hopefully we can have more companies come on board and more sponsors join the sport. That's always a great thing for making sure that NASCAR keeps on growing. And it's going to be a fun ride for the rest of the season with DoorDash along with us. Then let's go to the Xfinity Series here. The star of the show last week on the Daytona Road Course, Ty Gibbs. He has been announced to get 14 more races with that number 54 car for the JGR in the Xfinity Series this season. One caveat, though, is that he's going to be running the 81 car, it seems, at one point in time there at, I believe it is Road America. Yep. So they're going to have 5 entries that weekend for JGR, so that should be a fun one with Kyle Busch already slated to run that one in the 54. So it won't be all in the 54 for Ty Gibbs, but the majority of them, they will be behind the wheel of that Monster Energy car in the Xfinity Series. He's got Phoenix in March, Martinsville in April, Darlington in May, Dover, its only race this season, Charlotte in May on the oval, as well as the Roval later on, Mid-Ohio, Pocono, Road America, of course, and Watkins Glen, Indianapolis, Michigan, Richmond, and Kansas. A heavy schedule here for Ty Gibbs, who's also going, remember, for the ARCA Menard Series title as well. So he's got a lot of things. He's got a full plate this season, but after what we saw this past week, and if he can continue that pace, I'm not going to say he's going to win 15 races this season, but this kid is something really special. He's super talented. We talked about that on the weekend when we recapped the show and just really got into Ty Gibbs a little bit more, but really great opportunity here for him, Kyle. This is obviously a premier organization. The 54 car is going to have a lot of Cup guys in that car this season, so to have Ty Gibbs in there is a pretty solid addition for the rest of the season.
Yeah, we knew that he was going to be the primary driver for most of the season. We didn't know how much, and with obviously that first ever start in the series, going out and winning it, we knew that he'd be getting a fair share of starts. And the interesting thing is that as it stands right now, the most starts he has in a row is 3, and that's Watkins Glen, Indianapolis Road Course, and then Michigan. Other than that, it's either 2 or 1 and then a week off. So still very much the focus is winning that ARCA championship, getting the starts in Xfinity as well, to just kind of round out his schedule this season. But there's still 8 more races for that 54 car that still don't have a driver announced for them. New Hampshire, Daytona at the season finale there, Bristol, Las Vegas, Talladega, Texas, Martinsville, and Phoenix. So there's still a handful more that could be announced. He could get a couple more of those as the playoffs go along. Maybe we see somebody like Chandler Smith get in the car there later in the season. But no, great to see him get this many starts. Especially cool to see the 5 JGR cars at Road America. It's been a while since we saw that 81 busted out. I think it was like Eric Jones was like the last one to do it a couple years ago.
Could have been, yeah.
But no, it's really cool to see. I'm also, surprising to say this, looking forward to that Pocono weekend now, because that's when Sam Mayer makes his debut in the number 8 Junior Motorsports car, going up against Ty Gibbs, who has been kind of his rival the past year in ARCA. Going to be fun to see them go head-to-head in Xfinity for like that second half of the season. But very cool to see him get this many races in the 54. Some people had their reservations going into the season about him. I was excited to see what he could do. Knocked it out of the park, obviously, in the first race. But once we get to some of those more typical NASCAR tracks, the 1.5 mile, some of the bigger tracks that he's maybe not as used to, I think that's where we're really going to see where his skill level is at in terms of his development.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to see what this kid can do behind the wheel this season. He's going to have plenty of opportunities to show what he can do, and I'm fascinated to see how JGR handles this situation moving forward at beyond this season. If he's getting this many starts this season, what do they do? Do they send him to the Truck Series in a KBM ride at some point here?
I don't think that was ever really part of the plan. It seemed, especially given like the fact that it's a Joe Gibbs Racing entry in ARCA, not a Venturini, which is usually the Toyota plan. I think the entire time it's been to keep him in Joe Gibbs equipment, and whether that's having a Joe Gibbs truck in the Truck Series or just having him skip over trucks entirely. Like we've seen it in the past. Coy Gibbs way back, obviously his dad early in the 2000s had a Joe Gibbs truck in the Truck Series. So it's possible they do that, but I think the most likely scenario is that he takes one of these Xfinity seats here.
Yeah, I would imagine so too. If he's already winning races in the Xfinity Series, it would make sense to kind of just skip the Truck Series stuff. And we've seen that with some people go from trucks straight to Cup or Xfinity to Cup.
And he was eligible to run the entire season in trucks this year as well, and they decided not to do it. So I think it's pretty clear that they're looking to go a little bit different, maybe skip over trucks entirely, maybe fast track it a little bit. But very excited to watch him the rest of this season.
For sure. This upcoming weekend, we have Steve Lettart going back at top of the pit box again.
This one?
Not in the broadcast booth. NBC is not taking over quite yet. That's some ways down the road. But Steve Lettart is a consultant for Spire Motorsports, and he is going to be the crew chief for Coy LaJoie this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Ryan Sparks is typical crew chief, and 2 other crew members, a part of that 7 team, are sidelined for COVID-19 protocols for this upcoming weekend. So it made sense to put Steve Lettart at top of the pit box. He talked to Bob Pockers in the media the other day, and just said that he has had no interest in trying to learn the car setup or anything like that. It's been 6 years since he's been atop of the pit box for anybody. So he can understand that a lot has gone on in those 6 years in terms of developing these race cars. And Steve is just going to be at top of the pit box just as a consultant, essentially. He's not having to do too much, just making the race calls to an extent, but he's going to be leading on his car chief and his lead engineer there to help him along the way. But this is just to fill a role for Steve Lettart. He said he has no interest in going back to being your crew chief. He likes being in the broadcast booth, which is unfortunate to say the least, I guess. But nonetheless, Steve Lettart here making his return to the crew chief position, Kyle.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny how this played out because he takes the role with Spire over the offseason as kind of somebody more in the background, just helping them out, kind of get their kind of standing as kind of a team that's really kind of starting for real for the first time this year. Years past, they've just been running to fill out the charter obligations, but this season was the first that they really looked at things and were like, okay, we want to start en route to competing. And they showed that with acquiring the second charter. They showed that by getting Corey LaJoie and getting Steve Lettart in. And now 2 races in, obviously it's unfortunate circumstances. We'd prefer to see Ryan Sparks not have to go out due to COVID protocols, but Steve Lettart, he's going to go back, and it's going to be kind of funny to see what they do. If they perform well, I think that's going to be funny. But no, I think at the end of the day, it's just kind of him kind of stepping in where they need him to be. I don't think this is going to spark anything for like a return or anything. I know you mentioned that. But no, I think this is like a one-off thing. It's unfortunate to see, obviously, the COVID protocols. Hopefully it's just contact tracing stuff and isn't any positive tests this early in the season. But for Spire Motorsports, this is really their first test as a new team. Obviously, they performed very well at Daytona. A bit lackluster at the road course, but the 1.5 miles are the bread and butter of NASCAR. That's where we really get to see where the performance levels are at. Corey LaJoie on the Dale Jr. Download talked about how they expect to be near JTG levels of equipment. So their first test to show that is going to be here coming up at Homestead with, of all people, Steve Lettart atop the pit box.
It is hilarious. But I mean, we're wishing obviously funny. Ryan Sparks and the 2 other members of the team all the best as they recover from whatever is happening right now with their ailments, or if they're just taking this as a precaution this weekend. We hope to see them back at the racetrack come the next weekend there. For sure. But pretty cool opportunity for Steve Lettart. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully they do an interview with him or something from the booth. I would love it if Jeff Gordon called down to Steve Lettart. That would be a really cool element for Fox this weekend. It'd be a missed opportunity if they didn't take that opportunity. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of these new teams, right? 2311, Trackhouse, you want to include Spire in there as well. These are kind of like their real first big tests on a 1.5 mile track. We'll see what their performance levels
and obviously Spire
isn't
a new team in that regard, but they're essentially a new team in the fact that this is a new starting point for them. The last couple of years have been just running it out, basically Rick Ware stuff, just to get through the charter obligations. This year, they're actually looking to start to compete. So I know they're not technically a new team, but in my mind, they're a new team. So excited to see what they do this weekend, as with all the other teams you mentioned there.
We've got the Bristol Dirt Weekend coming up here, Kyle, very shortly. It's kind
of crazy how quickly it comes up.
Yeah, and NASCAR released a little bit of scheduling details and the format for that upcoming weekend. More details will be announced later next week. But for right now, we know both the trucks and the Cup Series. Remember, no Xfinity Series for the Bristol Dirt this season. And they will have 2 hours of practice each, that being the trucks and the Cup Series, as well as 4 15-lap heat races to set the starting lineup for this one. So we'll see how that goes, if they want to really tear each other up with the heat races, or if they're going to play it more cautious. It's all the luck of the draw, essentially. I imagine they're going to do something for practice speeds or something like that to set the lineup in terms of who plays in what places in what heat, but we'll see what happens. I don't know what to expect from this. We heard from Rafael Lettart on the last episode that he doesn't know what to expect. It's kind of a huge unknown for these guys, and there's a lot of different ways you can go about this. The Truck Series is going to obviously get their feet wet on the Dirt Series before they go on the Dirts later this season at Knoxville, but for the Cup Series, this is their one and only dirt track that we haven't seen in decades for the Cup Series, way back to basically since its inauguration back in like the 50s and 60s. We haven't seen NASCAR on dirt. So this is going to be nuts. I don't know what to expect, but we'll see what happens with this format. Like I said, there's going to be more details released later on this week. as well as Kyle Busch is going to get some extra seat time at the Bristol Dirt to get himself
pretty
prepped for the
fun.
Cup Series. He's going to be getting some extra seat time. He's going to be running the Bristol Dirt Nationals there. This is, it's kind of similar to what the Prelude to the Dream was to an extent. Please bring it back. Oh my God, I miss that so much when they had that during the summer months. And they just had Tony Stewart, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, all these guys going at it on dirt and whoever came out victorious. So that was a long time ago, but this is kind of throwback for Kyle Busch. He's going to get a little bit of practice underneath him prior to the actual going into behind the wheel of a Cup car. It's a week prior to when the Cup Series is there at Bristol. So that should be interesting to see, as well as with the Bristol Dirt Weekend. Chris Windom will make his NASCAR Cup Series debut in the number 15 for Rick Ware Racing for the Bristol Dirt Race. His sponsorship will be from NOS Energy Drink. And he became the 7th driver last season to win the USAC Triple Crown and has raced in NASCAR prior in the Camping World Truck Series back in 2017 and 2018. So a pretty hefty sponsorship there from an NOS Energy Drink as well. So I'm curious to see on what he could do. They're getting obviously a dirt guy here that's going to come in there. Maybe he can sneak a top 20 finish. You never know what's going to happen at these kind of places. But what do you make of the news there, Kyle? The format, Kyle Busch and Chris Windom. You never thought all three of those guys would be in the same sentence, but nonetheless.
For the format, it's kind of what we expected to see. Obviously, the laps we know for the main is going to be very, very heavy, but we knew that they were going to do some kind of dirt style format for it because that's what we've seen in the Truck Series as well. So excited to see that as kind of a warm up to the main show. I'm still very concerned about how the wear on the track's going to be running that many laps over the weekend with dirt. And it's just going to be a rubbered in track by the end of things. So I don't know what it's going to be like in terms of all of that. But for Kyle going out and doing the super late stuff, it's cool to see because I think we're going to see more people as well.
Yes,
so
it seems like that. Yeah.
I think that he's just the first of probably a handful that we're going to see try and run that race, whether it's typical dirt guys like Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe get a ride for that, or if it's other people looking to maybe get some experience on the dirt before the actual Cup Series race. I'm excited to see what the entry list is going to look like for that race once we get closer to that. And for Chris Windom, I think we're going to see a couple dirt ringers, I guess. I almost accidentally said road course ringers out of just muscle memory, but he's the first. Rick Ware, I would imagine maybe gets another one in the fold because they've got a couple people running full season, but for those other two entries that they have there, why not toss a dirt driver in there, get some decent sponsorship like for Chris Windom getting NOS Energy, bringing that over from his regular dirt series. But we're going to see him. Maybe we see some other people that maybe aren't running in the Cup Series right now go out, get a chassis or something and go out and try to make the show, something like that. I think that could be a fun storyline, maybe the open entries for that. But no, it's really cool. I kind of expected there to be like a couple dirt guys in the show. But to get somebody like Chris Windom in this early, as you mentioned, he's got some Truck Series starts at Eldora, also just on regular pavement as well. Obviously it's Rick Ware, so we don't know what the car's actually going to be like. But with NOS Energy there, with a relatively big name in the dirt series scene in Chris Windom as well, I'm excited to see what they can do. It's a nice looking car with the render that they had posted as well.
Yes.
It's a nice looking car there. And it's somebody who's been very good on dirt. As you mentioned, he's the reigning USAC midget champion. He's won the USAC Triple Crown. So this is a guy who knows what he's doing on dirt, and it's going to be interesting to see what he can do in backmarker equipment we expect for the Bristol Dirt Race.
I'm just fascinated to see. I don't know if I'm excited for it. Like we've talked about plenty of times on this show.
I'll say I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what it is. I don't have high expectations for it, but I'm still excited to see what it is because this is a brand new thing. So
yeah, fair enough. I'm hesitant. I'll say that.
I'm the same there, but
we'll preview the Bristol Dirt in a couple of weeks for sure. We'll have a fun time with fantasy for that week. I can imagine. I don't know what to expect for that, but the last little bit of NASCAR Cup Series news.
Actually, before we move on. Do we see a Chris Windom show in fantasy that week? I don't know.
You never know, man. Like, you may not just want to waste the usage that week.
That's the thing, right?
Right? But the thing is,
I don't know.
The best drivers do usually excel. I've tried to save usages of the past couple weekends, and look where that's that's where I'm at. 0-2, 6 points behind overall. That's where I'm at. So maybe saving usage just isn't the best idea for a race like that, where it's kind of like a crapshoot and you don't know what to expect. The best drivers do usually excel. We'll just see how many of them are left at the finish of that race.
Right.
But nonetheless, the last bit of Cup Series news here: Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Martin Truex Jr. will take part in a Goodyear tire test at COTA on Tuesday. Going to be their first glimpse of the NASCAR Cup Series at COTA as well. So they're going to get a little bit of extra practice laps here just to see what the track is like, just trying to get themselves ready for that later in the summer race date there at COTA. I'm super pumped for that one. It's close to the public, so we're not going to get too much information from the reporters and stuff like that in the media. But nonetheless, you got some really good names there. Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., and Brad Keselowski, all of them, despite Brad Keselowski's antics over the past weekend at the Daytona Road Course, he's actually a pretty solid road racer. I wouldn't say antics, but just his
just chaos.
The chaos that he had this past weekend to still get a top 5 finish just is miraculous. But those 3 guys are going to get a lot of great, valuable information for NASCAR, and hopefully Goodyear can supply us a tire that is going to do us very well for that race, because I think there's a lot of expectation NASCAR going there.
I saw somebody on Twitter share the Supercars race from 2013 at COTA, and just watching them pile into turn 1 there, how insanely wide it is, and then it's going to be so much fun to watch all those cars pile into turn 1 there. It's going to be chaos, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for it. And the test is just kind of like that little reminder that, oh yeah, that's a little nugget we get in a few months' time.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are going to run wide, similarly to the Daytona Road Course turn 1. I think something like that where you just overshoot it, you overcook it, because it is uphill, so you think you can break that a little bit later, and no, you can't. So I'm excited to see what happens with COTA and NASCAR later on. So we can look at Formula One here, Kyle. We've had a couple of new liveries released over the past couple of days since we last recorded on Monday, technically. We obviously did the interview yesterday, but that is a special occasion. We won't talk about news during that episode. But with Red Bull and Alfa Romeo now releasing their 2021 Challengers, Red Bull, basically a carbon copy of what they've done in the past since 2016 in terms of the livery-wise, seems pretty decked out in terms of aerodynamics and stuff. Could be a title challenger for sure. Then Alfa Romeo, they switch it up on the livery side of things. They kind of inverted the side pod there with the red going to the bottom and the white going to the top as well, with like a new logo there for Alfa Romeo with a green clover on the side. So what do you make of the 2 liveries there? That's the most important thing. We'll see what happens with the track on-track product. But I'm sure, I don't know how you feel about the Red Bull livery, but there's a lot of people who are like, oh, just change it already. But some people are here for the nostalgia and the classic here that Red Bull seem to be building towards with this one.
Yeah, I don't hate that Red Bull keeps it the same. I do think that changing it every single year, it's obviously fun in terms of just getting the variety year to year. But in terms of a team that's branded like Red Bulls, I don't hate the fact that they keep the same. Obviously, I think it would be nice to see like the Toro Rosso blue come back from a few years ago. That was gorgeous, but I do like the dark blue. I do like keeping the branding the same. So it's a nice looking car. If it was a bad looking scheme, then obviously it'd be like, change it up already. But it's a good looking scheme. The main thing is going to be how the car actually performs, not the scheme itself. And we've seen a lot of teams be very secretive about a lot of the aerodynamics and whatnot in their releases so far. So still excited to see what their pace is like on track, especially with Sergio Perez now in that second seat there. But yeah, very excited to see Red Bull this season. Scheme, come on, we knew it was going to be the same, right? There was no way they were going to change anything up. For Alfa Romeo, though, I'm a fan. I like the white base with the kind of the red accents, kind of the reverse from what they did last year, where it was
reverse
more
retro
the
question
red.
mark?
Yeah, kind of. Where last year, obviously, it was kind of like the red on top with the white on bottom. I like the switch up. It looks pretty solid. Big fan of the Alfa Romeo and kind of the scheme there. Obviously, we both predict that they're going to be out of the sport next year and it's going to return to Sauber. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But at least for this season, the Alfa Romeo is looking pretty nice.
If this is the last season we do have Alfa Romeo for a long time, I'm happy with the livery that they've gone with. It's going to be a nice one to go out on if our prediction does come to fruition. But I'm a big fan of it. I like it a lot. I like that it's not just a bright red. It's like a maroonish kind of red. It's so classic. It just has a vintage look to it, similarly to what the Alpha Tauri does as well. I think they're kind of like the same thing with like the blue side of things, and then that red. I think that they both look fantastic.
Do you like the Alfa Romeo this year more than last year?
Yes,
100%. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind on that one. I like the red on the bottom. I think it just gives a little bit more of that earthy tone. I don't know, like it just builds up from the bottom instead of white and then going to the red on the top. I'm very, very excited to see what happens with the next two with Aston Martins and Mercedes coming up here.
Aston Martin's the big one because as well we got the confirmation that BWT is back, so there's going to be some kind of pink involved in it. I hope that it's like small and not like just because.
Please don't put green, neon, yellow, and pink. Like, don't do that. Just pick one or the other. I'm really hoping on like the back wing
or something like that, like the DRS or something like that. I think it could be fine because like we see with like the McLaren with like the Husky chocolate, like the red doesn't like take away from the scheme itself. So I'd be cool with like the pink there and then the rest of it looking like the regular Aston Martin. But yeah, I like BWT being back, obviously, but I'm a little bit concerned that the pink's going to make the scheme look way bad. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm skeptical because pink and green don't really mesh in the color palette. So I'm interested to see how they kind of play that one. Hopefully it is a good looking one because this is the one most people are looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Alpine, of course, but this one is kind of like the newest, or the big rebranding. Sebastian Vettel over there. It's kind of a new era here.
Like it's the name value of it. There's the scheme, of course, and everything. Alpine is nice to see the change up, but bringing Aston Martin back to Formula One for the first time in decades is obviously the more important thing there. So
as well with Alpine, Fernando Alonso will not be a part of their car launch, I believe is what was reported. So we're wishing him all the best. Of course, was in that bike accident a couple of weeks ago. We're wishing him all the best on his road to recovery as well. So those are the latest two car launches here. We've got 4 out of the 10 now. So we're not halfway yet, but we're getting there close. The next ones are March the 3rd, I believe. So we have a couple more days here before we get to see the next latest editions of the 2021 cars. I'm curious to see how Mercedes does it with the black livery or if they go back to silver. There's a lot of good ones coming up here.
I hope that it's a black base with some hints of silver, but we'll see.
And of course, we've got the turquoise green, whatever you want to call it. But looking forward to that. And then as well, we got Formula E starting their season. It started this morning, and then it's starting again tomorrow. They've got their second race. Nick DeVries won the one earlier today with the first race of the weekend. He was on pole. He went from pole to victory to crossing the start-finish line first. So congratulations to Nick DeVries. I remember former F2 champion did not make that jump up to F1 that we usually see from F2 champions, or in some capacity they're either reserved or actually on the grid themselves. But Nick DeVries has gone down the Formula E path and has done fairly well in his short tenure there so far. So we'll see if he can go back to back here with the next race here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern, I guess, for yourself there, Kyle. So I'm gonna have to get up a little early if I want to, but nonetheless, should be a fun Formula E season. We'll keep you updated on that throughout the season, just because it is a Formula associated series. But what do you make? I know you didn't really get to see the highlights or anything, but a strong start to the season there for Nick DeVries.
Yeah, the race was earlier today, so full highlights and stuff haven't been posted by Formula E yet. But no, it's great to see him start the season in this fashion. Finished last year with a second place finish. Up and down kind of season. There was some highlights where he got a couple top fives there, but a lot of lowlights as well, where there's some crashes or just non-points finishes. Ended up being an 11th place finish in the championship. When you look at Stoffel Van Dorn being up there in the top 2. You wanted a little bit more from DeVries there. Second year starting it off with a win on pole as well is absolutely huge for him. I actually like what Mercedes did with him instead of tossing him up as like a reserve driver for them or something, putting him over in Formula E so he's still getting consistent race action and potentially make the jump back over at some point, something along those lines. I like what they did with him there. But yeah, no, a great start to the season for him. Second place finish in the season closer last year, starting off this season in Diriad with a first place finish. We'll see what he can do tomorrow. But no, a great start for Mercedes as a whole, and for DeVries picking up his first ever victory in Formula E.
For sure. That's going to do it for the news and notes section for today's episode. It's time for fantasy, Kyle.
Alrighty.
It's the third episode with fantasy involved for the 2021 season. Kyle's kicking my butt right now by
Whoa,
a total
whoa,
six points. 6 points.
Okay.
He's kicking my
I'm
butt
scared
by.
you're going to pump my tires too much, and then I'm going to collapse over these next few weeks when we get to like the mile and a halves and
The more
the more
predictable
normal
stuff?
tracks, and it just goes haywire on me. But we'll see. We'll see.
I'm still. I threw it away last week. I had you beat, but I garaged Michael McDowell instead of Chase Briscoe, and that ended up costing me the victory there. So still very close, 2-0 to Kyle in the head-to-head for the season. So I've got to get right back on track here this weekend at one of my favorite racetracks, Homestead Miami Speedway. As for yourself, Kyle, this
Top
is the
tier
best
track.
mile and a
We
half.
both put it in there.
This is an elite tier track for Homestead, and it starts off the season so early on. It's unfortunate this is not the championship finale. I will never get over that now, and as long as it is not the championship finale. But
We should have two then. Like if it's not going to be the championship race, we should have two. But
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
but
well.
yeah, we don't make the decisions, but if we did, it would be pretty great. Not. So we got obviously our standard 6 picks for this week, and then of course honorable mentions. Stay away froms that are usually going to be turning into good performances, so maybe not pay much attention to that category. But then we got the bonus picks later on, as well as our Xfinity and Cup Series winner picks. So stay tuned for that a little bit later on. But make sure to follow us or join us on the Fantasy League as well, the green flag on the NASCAR Fantasy app. So it's still never too late. We are off to a very poor start overall with our points total, so it is not unheard of to make up the ground. It's only 2 races into 36, so you got plenty of time to catch up. So make sure to go join us over there. Again, the green flag on the NASCAR Fantasy app. So let's get right into the lineups, Kyle. I've got 5 of my 6 currently set in stone for right now, but
okay.
Do you want to lead this one off here this week, or should I?
Sure, I'll gladly lead things off here. I've got 5 for certain as well. I've got a 6 that I think I'm going to have in my lineup, but I do have a more conservative pick as a 7th option. If maybe you go more conservative route, I don't want to maybe burn up as many top end usages. I've got one that I might switch out at the end here, but I'll start things off with the defending race winner in Denny Hamlin. And when I'm looking at things here, he's just been consistently good at this track. No matter what the package has been, he's always been in the conversation. Obviously, the championship race has kind of brought the pressure on Hamlin in some of those circumstances, and hasn't necessarily been the quality finish he's been looking for to win the championship in years past. But last year, the race wasn't the championship race. He went out and won the race from pole as well. In fact, of the last 6 races, he's been on pole 5 of the time. So kind of funny how that's worked out for him there. But no, Denny Hamlin, I feel like he's a pretty safe pick for this one. I haven't used him yet at all this season. So I feel good about using him here. Again, in the past 6 starts, he's got the win last year. 5 other top 10s, an average finish of 8.5 over the last 6 races at Homestead. He's going to be one of my big entries here as the defending race winner.
Yeah, I'm going with him as well. Despite my usage in the Daytona 500, which proved to be valuable, I can't say no to Denny Hamlin this weekend. He's just too good here. He's been this way throughout his entire career. He wins races here consistently, and if he's not, he's in the top 5 or leading laps. So I'm looking at Denny Hamlin to have a huge weekend here, off to a very strong start, starting on pole this weekend. You can't go wrong with Denny Hamlin really this weekend. I would say maybe if you've used him already twice, then maybe you save a usage if you used them at the road course and in the 500. But for me, I just can't take the risk here and just try and get the points where I can get them. So I'm going to take Denny Hamlin here this weekend. So second pick, do you want to go snake here, or do you want to take the second?
No. I'm not leading the way the whole time, sir. You can go next.
Sorry. All right. Well, I'm gonna go with Tyler Reddick here with my next pick.
Okay.
I'm gonna use him this weekend. It seems like a logical pick, despite his starting position back there in 35th. He's got an average finish of 4th in his one race, so he finished 4th here last year. Remember,
and that was with coasting half the lap as well.
Yeah. He did forget that there was an extra lap at the end. They replayed that videotape on NASCAR's Twitter handle, so I'm sure Reddick had a chuckle at that. But Reddick won 2 races here in the Xfinity Series en route to his 2 championships down there. And he was so good here last season, rides the wall like nobody else. And I was a bit conservative on him last year just because of this 550 horsepower package on if he could run that well against the wall. And it paid dividends again last year. So I don't see any reason why I wouldn't play Tyler Reddick. He may not get the points early on. He said he's going to play it a little bit more conservative. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I'll still take Tyler Reddick. I think he'll be there at the end, getting a solid finish as long as he keeps it out of the wall, which is going to be tough to do. He does ride that Cushman pretty closely, but I'm going to take Tyler Reddick here as my second guy.
Yeah, Tyler Reddick's got to be in your lineup here just because it's the most valuable Reddick usage. You're not going to get close to the 10 total usages for him this season, and this is his best track. He finished 4th here in his rookie season, and that was with starting 24th as well, so he's been able to pass here in the Cup Series as well in his one start. He's starting at the back. Is he going to get stage points? No, but he's somebody that you can toss in your garage to start, and if he makes his way up to the top 10, then you can easily swap him in, and if he doesn't, well, then you can easily leave him in your garage and you don't feel bad about it at all. So Tyler Reddick absolutely in the lineup here for Homestead. Excited to see what he can do coming from the back. He said he's going to be more conservative about things. He's still going to make his way up to the front fairly quickly, especially if RCR has the speed that they had last year at this track where Austin Dillon as well finished in the top 10. I like Tyler Reddick here.
All righty. Third pick for you there.
Third for me, I don't know where to go because we need to say things strategically as well. So you know what? I'll go out and I'll maybe play into your hands a little bit here. Kyle Busch is in my lineup here. Over the last 6 starts, his worst finish is 6th. That's happened twice. He's won 2 races over that time. Obviously winning championships, 4 top 5s there, an average finish of 3.3 over the last 6 Homestead starts. Kyle Busch, he's great here. Even when he hasn't had the good finish, it's been like 6th. Last year didn't get the stage points, so only 33 points garnered from that 6th place finish. But when I'm looking at Kyle Busch, they had a tough year last year. I'm expecting them to rebound more this year. I like him in this one. Maybe a bit risky using that first usage for him here, but even last year when they had a down season, he finished 6th. So I feel pretty decent about him going out and getting something at least in the top 10.
I'm going with Kyle Busch as well this weekend. I have him in my lineup. I think this is one of his best tracks, and I think it's underrated that this is one of his best tracks. I think it's been that way for his entire career. Yeah,
I think a lot of people at Homestead are kind of underrated just because we think of it always with the championship for the last few years, and it's always been, okay, who's running for the championship, and coincidentally, those guys are always up at the front. So there's only really been a couple of guys that we've looked at as being like good at Homestead because they're guys that run up with those championship for when they're not in the championship. But Kyle Busch, he's always been in the championship for essentially, at least when it was with Homestead as the final track, and he was always up there in the conversation. So sneaky numbers there, but absolutely makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, I can't bet against my guy this weekend, despite his 24 starting position. So he'll have to come through the pack quite a bit here. I think he may slack it in stage 1 if he gets any points. It will be a miracle, to be honest, in my opinion. If it's going to take a lot to pass that many cars in the early going. If he gets a good setup though underneath him here, if they unload off the truck good this season compared to what they did last year, we'll see. But I'm confident in Kyle Busch's abilities that he can dial it in throughout the race, and Homestead is one of his best tracks. I think back in 2008, 2009, like 2011, 2012, he was all leading laps at these places. 2010, he got wrecked by Harvick. But I mean, all these, he's had fuel mileage issues at this track, so maybe his numbers are statistically not that great in the early 2010s, but the past 5-6 years, he's been spectacular here. So I'm going to go with Kyle Busch as my third guy this weekend. My fourth guy, I'm going to stick with the Kyle camp. I'm going to go with Kyle Larson this weekend. It just makes sense for me. He rides the wall extremely well. When he was in the Cup Series last season, remember, he didn't run this race last season, but when he was in those championship battles at Homestead, you think back to 2017 specifically, when he was right there with Truex and Kyle Busch in the final laps, and Larson kind of stayed back. He could have passed them probably both, but he stayed out of the championship battle with those two, and Larson has just been historically very good at this track. He sometimes lends to maybe make his own mistakes. It's driver forced error. It's an unforced error on his part. But I think what I've seen from Larson so far this season in terms of how he played it at Daytona and how well he ran at the road course, I know there's no correlation in terms of the track, but just his mentality, I think he's done a pretty good job so far. So I'm going to go with Kyle Larson as my fourth guy this weekend.
Kyle Larson is also in my lineup here. I think that these four are probably the most common picks here, at least looking at the numbers and looking at last year as well. For Kyle Larson, yeah, we know how good he is at Homestead. With Chip Ganassi, though, a lot of the time he was almost trying to do too much and cause some issues for himself there. With Hendrick, you wouldn't expect that to be an issue for him. You'd expect him to have the car under him to go out and perform at the level which you would expect for him. So I'm extremely excited to see what he can do there. Obviously, it would have been even better if he could have just finished the race last week at the Daytona road course and picked up that really, really strong starting position. Not quite the circumstance here, starting a little bit farther back, not completely 17th in the back, but in the middle of the pack, not right up at the front, which he would have been if he just went out and got through turn 6 cleanly there. But instead, starting 17th here, I still like him quite a bit in this race, at least to be there at the finish, maybe pick up some stage points as well. Because 17th, you only got to pass 7 cars to go up there and get inside the top 10. And there's some lesser cars up there inside that top 15 starting position as well. So I like Kyle Larson quite a bit coming up here. To Homestead, very excited to see what he can do at what a lot of people say is his best track in the best equipment he's had in the Cup Series here. To the final two here, and I think this is where it starts to get a lot more interesting for the lineup, because I think that those four are pretty much consensus for the most part when you look at value and when you look at the stats. There's a couple other big names you could toss in your lineup here if you want to go aggressive with it. I'm going to start with maybe a little bit less of an aggressive pick, but depending on how the season goes, could end up being an interesting usage here. Christopher Bell is in my lineup here. He's got a very, very good starting position here. In the Xfinity Series, he had some bad luck at this track, wasn't able to come through and win that Xfinity Series championship in 2019. He had his best finish of 5th. A couple years previous to that, in his first start here, he had an engine issue, so kind of brings down the average finish. But when I'm looking at Christopher Bell, the big thing is last year, finishing 8th in Levine family racing equipment. This year, he's got the really, really good starting position. I'm expecting for him to get some good stage points in that first stage, at least, if not as well in the second stage. With JGR, expect him to be there at the end. I really like JGR this weekend. So Christopher Bell, didn't use him last week when he got the win. First usage for him coming here at Homestead with a good starting position and a good track record from last season.
Oh God, I cannot believe. I really want to match you on it, but I don't want it to come down to one guy. Like, it's such a good pick because Adam Stevens is such a good crew chief at this track. He's like Kyle Busch to 2 championships here. Like, the only thing I would say to Bell is he's not the greatest at running the wall per se. When you saw the Xfinity Series, he just couldn't quite match Reddick and Custer in those races.
Which is strange for a dirt guy, but
yeah, when you look at how well Larson does, but the fact that he finished inside the top 10 here last season it bodes well for him. Man, I can't pick him though, just because I want to go differently for you here. So that's unfortunate for myself. Oh, damn. All right. I'm going to go with my first Ford for the event here. I'm going to go with, out of the Penske stable, Ryan Blaney. He ran well here last season. He's my breakout driver of the year. I think he's had a poor start to the season. Hasn't really gotten anywhere near what we expect of Ryan Blaney. I think I've just put that down to circumstances. This is where he can finally show his speed this season. He's got an average finish over the last 3 races here, specifically of 10.33, 1 top 10, ran exceptionally well here last season, 70 laps led, and he starts 14th. So outside the top 10, once again, as a lot of my picks are, but I think I like Ryan Blaney here quite a bit. He's ran pretty consistently well here over his entire career. And I look at him to be right up there with his 4 teammates there with Logano. Keselowski may be the lesser of the 3 of them, but I'm looking at Ryan Blaney here to have a pretty solid weekend. So I'm going to go with him.
Ryan Blaney was originally in my lineup, but because you made the sportsmanship play of not taking Bell and matching him there, I'll take the sportsmanship play and I'll take Blaney out for that other option that I had there. And it's somebody that I'm not worrying about the usages on, but I feel like he could maybe be a sneaky guy here to maybe get some stage points early with a pretty solid starting position and a good track record at this track, except for last year. My final entry here, Mr. Cole Custer, won in dominant fashion at Homestead in 2017 in Xfinity Series, backed it up with a second place finish in 2018 and 2019 in the Xfinity Series. Wasn't great here last year in his Cup Series debut, but the entire rookie season for Cole Custer outside of that Kentucky win was pretty lackluster. He's got a good starting position here up in 10th place. So if he can hold on to that early on, he can get some stage points. Starting up at the front maybe helps out there. I'm looking at Cole Custer maybe to be some sneaky value here, trying to save some usages for some big dogs later in the season. So going top heavy with a couple of guys there, but then some strategic usages for myself. And Custer being there is kind of like a garage usage that could get into the lineup if one of my top 5 guys has some early issues. So that's my final pick here. Where are you going for your number 6?
Interesting that you mentioned the Stewart-Haas Racing stable, because I as well am going to be dabbling in that market.
Okay.
Kevin Harvick is my last guy in my lineup here. I'm going heavy hitters this weekend. I have to get some points. I like Harvick here this weekend. I don't know. I just think Rodney Childers' ability of unloading off the truck is just exceptional compared to the pack. And I look at Kevin Harvick as just a big guy. If I need to bench him, I can. But it's just those road courses this season. I'm not going to be playing him basically at any this season, in the regular season, that is. So that's a lot of usages gone for Kevin Harvick. I'm going to be looking at the mile and a half specifically for that 14 this season. And what better way to start it off with than Homestead Miami Speedway, the first race this season. I just have to get back on track here. I have to get some points in the bag, and I like Kevin Harvick as well. So I'm going to go with him this weekend. I don't know. I just have a feeling that I needed to disperse my lineup with the 2 Toyotas, 2 Chevrolets, and 2 Fords. I didn't want to go all in on the Toyotas this weekend just to play it safe a little bit and just to be sportsmanship a little bit. He's starting 4th as well. I would love to have a little bit of track position up there in the first stage as well with Hamlin and Harvick. So I'm going to disperse my lineup a little bit all throughout the pack. So I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick as my last guy from a fantasy lineup.
Obviously, a very, very strong pick. The one thing that kept me from going heavy and picking Kevin Harvick as well was just last year they went with the short run car. Didn't work out well. They finished 26th, finished way back because we got a lot of green flag runs, and maybe they switch it up, go back to the long run car, and it works out well for them this year, or they stick with the short run and it doesn't work. Like, there's a lot of ways that it could go. Very strong starting position, though, so that's going to be good for some stage points, but I do have the early advantage here, so went with a little bit more conservative, trying to save some usages, spread it out over the season. So the only guy that I'm using in terms of 2 usages so far this season, assuming that he gets the good finish, would be Larson for myself.
Yeah, mine is Hamlin. I'm taking a big risk here and using Hamlin 2 out of the 3 races to start the season, but when they're the 2 tracks that he runs exceptionally good at, I can't say no to Denny Hamlin. So yeah, that rounds out the fantasy lineup
as well for myself. Just finally, Larson, Hamlin, Busch, Reddick, Bell. Those are my big 5 that I think are going to perform very well. Custer is just kind of an extra one that I can toss in if maybe he surprises or if somebody has some issues. But I figured I'd go with a little bit of a different pick as well there. I wanted to see your reaction to that one because I knew it would be a little bit off the board.
Yeah, it was. I've got Reddick, Larson, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Kevin Harvick for my lineup this weekend. Just trying to get back on track, like I said. So
in terms of differences, we're looking at Custer and Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney and Kevin Harvick. So an interesting kind of duo there. See how things play out. It probably ends up being 1 versus 1, probably Bell versus 1 of Blaney or Harvick, depending on how things go. But going to be interesting to see how things play out here, as I believe we get to the bonus picks. And I said before the show, mine are a little bit off the board, but sorry. I didn't know if you wanted to get to those after bonus picks or before.
No.
But go ahead.
No, we'll get to those first. We got Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., and Chase Elliott. Those are 2 big names that a lot of people are going to be putting in their lineups this weekend. I just didn't feel comfortable putting either of them in just based off of their value on road courses. I know we kind of wasted the usage last week, but we could not have predicted the craziness that happened in those closing laps there with Chase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. I'm going to take the safe bet here and prefer them on some mile and a halves, as well as some road courses and even some short tracks for these guys. I just didn't want to waste a usage here quite yet on Homestead. So I stayed away from them, but you can definitely put them in your lineups. The numbers support them being exceptionally well this weekend. Austin Dillon as well, like you mentioned a little bit earlier on, had a top 10 finish here last season. So
RCR was very strong here last year.
We'll see if RCR can replicate that this season. It's going to be tough to do, but I could definitely see Austin Dillon being a sneaky top 10 threat throughout the majority of this race. Then the Hendrick Motorsports teammates of William Byron and Alex Bowman, they both had very good runs here last season. I just went with Kyle Larson for my Hendrick guy, as did you. But you could definitely put Bowman in. He's very good on these mile-and-a-half tracks that have aging tires, aging surfaces. He could be one to watch this weekend as well. And then Christopher Bell rounds up my honorable mentions this weekend. Just coming off of the win, momentum, Adam Stevens with a good setup here. I wanted to go play a little bit more sportsmanship this weekend, so I went against Christopher Bell.
I returned the favor as well. I had Blaney in my lineup originally. I swapped him out for Custer, so we both made some extra decisions there.
I'll take it at the end of the day. So that's the honorable mentions. My stay away froms, I had a tough time coming up with these ones because it's just very difficult to try and judge here at Homestead. Matt DiBenedetto, Bubba Wallace, and Daniel Suarez are the ones that I decided to put in there this weekend. I don't know what to expect from that 23 car. Mike Wheeler was very good with Denny Hamlin here with setups in the past with at Homestead Miami Speedway. So you could see the 23 being actually pretty solid here. I just went based off of Bubba's numbers more so than Mike Wheeler setting up the car. Daniel Suarez has kind of not been too great here. I know he won the Xfinity Series race when he won the championship, but I'm going to lean against using a Daniel Suarez usage, as well as Matt DiBenedetto. I just don't think this is the track you use him on this weekend. He just hasn't performed here. His numbers aren't great over the past couple of races, so I would stay away from them. But you never know. One of those guys could definitely surprise, as they usually do if they end up in my stay away from. So that does it for those guys. We got the bonus picks now, Kyle. Oh, boy. I still have not decided on my race winner pick, but everything else has filled itself out. So I'll leave this one off because you went first with fantasy, but we'll go with Chevrolet here first, as we do usually. I'm going to go with Kyle Larson to lead the Chevrolet camp this weekend. I really like that 5 car. I like Kyle Larson's ability. I was close to putting Tyler Reddick, but I think Larson will just be that little bit better than him this weekend, so I'm going to go with the 5.
I mentioned earlier that I wanted to diversify my lineup, not just go super heavy with my fantasy lineup, and mix it up with some of the bonus picks as well. So for my top Chevy, I didn't want to use one of his usages here because, as you mentioned, a lot of road courses this year. Chase Elliott, top Chevy for myself. Kyle Larson, I like him in my lineup, but as you mentioned, he's been a little bit reckless at times at this track, trying to do a little bit too much at times. So for myself, Chase Elliott finished second here, probably could have gone out and won the race as well, if not for some pit strategy at the end. I'll toss him in as my top Chevy. If he does so, pick myself up some extra points, hopefully with some other decent finishes in my lineup. But I mentioned I'm diversifying it. You'll see it with some of the other picks as well. Elliott's going to be my top Chevy guy.
All right, who's your top Ford here?
Top Ford, well, I mentioned I'm diversifying it. He's also not in my lineup. He is in yours, though, which I'm not a huge fan of. Kevin Harvick, I'm going to toss in as my top Ford. I was a little bit scared to use a usage for him here just because of how much they missed it last year. He could easily rebound and go out and win the race. So for myself, save the usage for maybe something a little bit more certain as the weeks go along here. Homestead is one of those mile and a halves where there's a bit more range to pick from in terms of a lot of strong contenders. So not going to use the usage, but I'm going to use him as my top Ford and kind of cover my bases there.
I'm going to go with Joey Logano as my top Ford this weekend.
Okay.
I'm going to diversify my stuff as well. I didn't want to go with Harvick or Blaney for this one, just in case one of them struggles. I'll go with another Penske guy because I don't see SHR being quite there with the Penske guys.
Yeah.
So, and Logano's been pretty good here in the past as well. So I'm going to go with the guy that's been really good so far to start this season, and we'll see if he can translate that momentum into a good run here at Homestead, a former race winner here as well. So he had a poor result last season, but nonetheless, I'm going to hope for the best here and try and say that the 22 car turns it around. I thought about
Blaney for this one, but he's only got the one kind of good result here at Homestead in terms of going up there and finishing in the top 5. So for myself, I thought about it. I thought I like the fantasy pick as well. But for top Ford, I feel like it's probably best to play it with some more certain options there.
All righty. Top Toyota finisher. You got a couple of really good options here. You can put any of the JGR guys in this one and you would probably feel pretty confident. So I'm going to go. Oh, man. Man, I could see. I think I know what you're gonna do, but I'll go different. I'm gonna say I think I know what you're gonna do for it, but I may be wrong. I'm gonna go with Denny Hamlin as my top Toyota
Okay.
guy, just in case he goes out there with a banger this weekend and just sets the world on fire. I could have put. I was thinking about maybe putting Martin Truex Jr. here. That's what I was thinking you might do because you don't have him in your lineup, and that would be a good way to diversify your lineup. You say so. It'd be a good bet. I think Truex could be pretty strong here this weekend, but I'm just going to double down on Hamlin. I'm going to say he gets the top Toyota finisher.
I am not going with Truex as my Toyota pick. The Toyota pick is the one pick I got here where it's also in my fantasy lineup.
Okay.
Kyle Busch is going to be my top
it.
Toyota there. Hey, you know what? We'll maybe see how things go the rest of the way, but I like JGR here for top Toyota. I feel like Kyle Busch is the most consistent in terms of the top six there. Obviously, he hasn't finished outside the top six in the past six races here. I like him coming into this weekend, even last year again, with them kind of having that down season, still finished sixth last year. I'll go with him as my top Toyota because I don't really feel good about him going out and potentially winning the race necessarily, but we'll see. So I felt like maybe tossing him as a top Toyota would be a nice little different pick there.
Alrighty. Winning manufacturer, Kyle. What are you thinking here for this one?
Winning manufacturer. Again, I didn't want to go all in on Toyota on this one, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. And I'll go with Ford, actually, for this one. When I look at Penske there, they've got some strong options with Logano and Blaney, who had a good run last year. Keselowski is a bit of a sleeper, potentially. And when I also look at SHR, Kevin Harvick, if he hits it, he could be a good one there. I like them a little bit more than going with Chevy. I didn't want to go with Toyota for the manufacturer pick because of who I'm going to get to for the winning organization. But for the winning manufacturer, wanted to change it up from Toyota just to cover my bases a little bit more there. I like Ford a little bit more than Chevy because for Chevy, it's really only down to two guys that are realistically going to win the race for myself, and Larson and Elliott. I think it's still a bit much to say RCR are going to go out and win the race with Reddick or Dillon on pace. So for myself, didn't want to go with Toyota for the manufacturer, didn't want to put all my eggs in that basket, so I'll go with Ford for the manufacturer.
I'm going all in.
Fair enough.
I'm going with Toyota. They have a quadruple threat there with all four of those guys capable of winning the race this weekend. I just can't bet against any of those four really, because just based off of previous success and what I'm expecting out of that team this weekend. And I don't see a threat other than, I would say, Chevrolet more so than Ford for sure. For myself personally, I just think Chevrolet could be pretty good this weekend. I don't look at Ford as being anywhere near the strongest manufacturer here this weekend. I could be completely wrong, but Toyota is definitely the favorite coming into this weekend.
Toyota's the number one manufacturer here. I do think Ford is number two, though, just because for Chevy, again, as I said, I think that there's only two guys who are realistically going to be challengers to win the race, whereas with Penske and Stewart Haas there's three, maybe four. You could stretch it two names there. So again, I'm looking to cover all my bases here, not like load it up on one and go for a huge points haul. Just kind of get my points here and there, cover it for anything that happens in the race. But I believe you're up first for winning organization, even though I already gave away who I'm picking. But yeah,
I'm going with the guy that you're going to be picking here, Joe Gibbs. I'm picking Joe Gibbs Racing here to win as the winning organization. They're just the odds-on favorite. You could definitely look at maybe Hendrick Motors for this one, but I think the safe bet here is JGR, even if you don't have Toyota as your manufacturer, as Kyle mentioned. So I just think that they're the odds-on favorite. The numbers are on their side for sure, so I'm going to go with JGR.
Yep, I basically gave it away earlier, but yeah, JGR is the one, and I believe that's the only bonus pick so far that we have the same, if I'm not mistaken. And it will be as well because we don't have the same winner pick as well, obviously, because that's a rule we put into place last week for obvious reasons. Shout out Chase Elliott, who, of course, doesn't go out and get the win anyways. But Joe Gibbs obviously is the easiest pick for winning organization here because, as you mentioned, four very, very good contenders here. Three who really, when you look at the grand scheme of things, have the track record of winning here. Christopher Bell doesn't have that the same, but had a good finish last year, better equipment this year, very good starting position, could easily go out and get 2 wins in the first 3 races potentially, which would be a crazy thing to say given what the 20 car has been up and down like the last few years. So Joe Gibbs is going to be the only matching that we'll have for the bonus picks here.
Alrighty. We got the Xfinity Series to pick here first, Kyle.
Yes.
You go first in this one. I'm curious to see what you do for this one, but we'll do Xfinity and the Cup Series winners to wrap up today's episode. So who do you have winning the race on Saturday? No doubleheader this weekend. Remember, they did that last season with the Xfinity Series, but not this time around.
Yeah, last year in the doubleheader, there was a certain car that was looking very strong the entire time and got screwed over a couple of times. I'm looking at Noah Gragson to go out, redeem himself for this one, and win this race. And look, if like Chase Briscoe or something was still down here, then maybe I'd go with him or something like that. But Noah Gragson, I think, opened a lot of eyes with his performance last year and got jobbed out of the win both times. So Noah Gragson is going to be my pick for the Xfinity race.
Yep, that was mine. That was my pick. Damn.
I kind of thought so. But
Damn.
I'm scared you're going to take my winner pick for the Cup Series. So
I don't know what you're thinking for the Cup Series. There's more options up there. Okay, so for the Xfinity Series, I'm just going to go with the guy who won a race here at Homestead last year. I'm going to go with Harrison Burton to get his campaign off to a good start. He didn't have the greatest run. It was kind of on a restart where he got the advantage there, but I think a whole year under his belt. He ran well at the 1.5 miles last season. I'm going to stick with the JGR camp over there with Harrison Burton. I like his speed. I would have gone with Gragson, obviously. But I'm going to stay away from Cindric this weekend. If there was Briscoe, of course, he went from 3 laps down last season to come back and finish in the top 10. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I'll go with Harrison Burton here to win the Xfinity Series race. Cup Series winner pick, 15 points on the line here if you can get this correctly for fantasy. I don't know what the heck you're thinking for your winner pick, to be honest. I'm not even going to try and guess what you're thinking for your winner pick because you seem like you really want a particular guy, and I don't know if it's a big name or not.
Yeah.
It's
if I don't get my guy, if I don't get my guy here, it kind of screws with my with some of my strategy a little bit here, but we'll see.
Okay. Okay, you know.
Who do you have winning here at Homestead?
Okay. The winner at Homestead, Miami Speedway, is going to be Denny Hamlin. I'm going to just take the...
You ass.
I'm going to take the 11. I'm going to take the 11. I just can't not take him. It's just the obvious pick here. I took Chase Elliott last week to be the obvious pick. He was in position to win it if it wasn't for the rain caution. Now I'm going to take Denny Hamlin this weekend. He's been so good here, and I'm stacking Hamlin entirely this weekend. He's had the momentum in the early part of the season. He's my winner pick for the Homestead Miami Speedway race in the Cup Series.
I was hoping you wouldn't go with that, but now I got to figure out what the hell I'm going to do, because my game plan was Kyle Busch for Top Toyota, cover my base there, go with Denny Hamlin as the winner pick, got JGR as the organization, kind of have it all covered a little bit here. Now I don't know what to do. I'll be honest. Denny Hamlin, I was banking on him going back-to-back here. When I'm looking at my lineup, I don't want to go Kyle Busch as race winner. I don't want to go Christopher Bell as race winner. Kyle Larson, do I really want to put all my eggs in that basket for the race winner pick? Do I want to go off the board and go MTJ, something like that? You know what? Screw it. You know what? I'm using him for the second time early this season to shout out the randomizer, which got me the win at Daytona. I'll believe it's a sign. I'll say Kyle Larson goes out and finally gets that win at Homestead, Miami, and he takes the win for Hendrick Motorsports in the number 5 and for Chevrolet.
I was very close to maybe switching to either Kyle Busch or Martin Truex Jr. with that pick, but I didn't want to give you the option of Hamlin, and then I had the opportunity to take him. It just doesn't make sense for me to miss out. So
I do wish I had Hamlin.
You take Gragson, I take Hamlin, but
well, the Xfinity picks don't matter, so I really wish I got the other one.
Potato? I don't know.
You know what? So far, last week, you got the first pick at race winner because I was the defending week winner. Didn't pay off for you, so maybe it's playing to the cards again. We'll see. I don't know. Hopefully I win by 3 points again and we keep that streak up. But
If I lose by 3 points again, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like,
Just
if
as
it
long
comes
as we
down to that,
get more than 150 points this time, because oh my lord, it has not been good in terms of the overall numbers.
no, it hasn't. I'm cautiously optimistic about my lineup here. I went with heavy hitters this weekend to try and get
I feel
a
good
little
about mine
bit
too.
more good, but.
So,
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know what to expect this week. I'm just looking forward to the race. Oh, honestly, I'm really excited for Homestead. Hopefully, we'll get a little bit more predictable of a race here. The chaos the last 2 weeks have
we
been.
love chaos.
I know, but at the same time, I don't want to. I would like to go back to my top 1,000 spot in fantasy overall at some point this time this
What do you
season.
like? You bottom like 1,000 right now? Like
Feels like it. Feels like it. I got a long way to go if I want to catch up, but hopefully this is the beginning of a journey to victory here for myself. But yeah, that's all the fantasy stuff for today's episode. Any final thoughts, Kyle, before we wrap up today's show?
Yeah, just super, super excited for this opening mile and a half. Very sad that we don't get the truck series here because
Yes.
this is the best mile and a half we have, and not having an extra series here is disappointing to say the least. But in terms of the actual racing, I'm super, super amped for this weekend because not only do we got Homestead, the best mile and a half in NASCAR for both Xfinity and the Cup Series. Obviously, we've got Formula E returning this weekend. We've also got Supercars returning at Mount Panorama this weekend for the opening race there. Not the 1,000, just 500, but equally exciting nonetheless. Motorsports getting back in swing. Obviously, we're getting more and more Formula One announcements. We've got NASCAR back in essentially full swing now. We've got Formula E now back on the grid. We've got Supercars back on the grid. It's just week by week, we're getting more and more stuff as we ramp up until like we're really, really in the heat of things. So very excited for this upcoming weekend of racing.
For sure. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Green Flag Pod now. Make sure to follow us on Twitter as well at the Green Flag Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. The links to the social channels will be in the description of the video. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you later, I guess, or next week. We got to talk to you next week now. This is the end of the week. We've got the racing all coming up now. It's going to be a fun one. Enjoy the racing at Homestead Miami Speedway, everybody.